Hello, I'm Justin, and this is the fifth episode of the Beyond Michigan podcast. Today, we are talking about a few battles from World War II that have been significant for the latter few years of the Second World War. Now, let's get right into it. Starting in North Africa was the North African Campaign from 1940 to 1943, and evidently it was located in North Africa. There were a whole lot of countries involved with this campaign, including but probably not limited to the British Commonwealth, the United States, Poland, Greece, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and French, Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco. Those three being for just the last couple years of this campaign. Then on the Axis side, there being Italy, Italian Libya, and Germany, and then French, Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco for the first 2 years of the campaign. Continuing on to the strategies, the first one we have is the Western Desert Campaign, which can be seen in the green countries on the map on the right. The two countries were Egypt and Libya. It started on June 11th, 1940 and ended on the 4th of February in 1943, so essentially lasted the entire time of their campaign in North Africa. And it was initiated by Italy to try and restore the Roman Empire from, centuries prior by trying to take Libya, which, as we all know, didn't end up ended up not going as well as they had hoped. Germany uh, helped in with that, but didn't really help a whole lot in that case. A stalemate happened was the main reason that no one could actually advance, you know, take this land faster because of several struggles that both sides faced during this part of the war. They were mostly stuck at the border between Egypt and Libya, uh, starting in late 1941. The Axis were forced to leave Libya about a year later, and then forced to leave Tunisia that following January. As for Operation Torch, the second of three major operations in the African front, involves Morocco and Algeria, which later allowed for an invasion of Sicily, or really any part of Italy if they decided to go through this island to Rome, which happens to be right about here. Now I have November 8th to 16th on here, but that was just the uh, area for invasion, the set of dates, not necessarily how long it lasted, because as we figured out from the operation or the Western Desert Campaign, it likely lasted at least a little bit longer than what it says on here. Then the Tunisian campaign from January 5th to 17th, 1943. Tunisia being this orange country right here. And thus directly allowed for an invasion of Sicily, with just how close it is to the bottom of Italy and the Italian peninsula. The hardships being the struggles in the Western Desert Campaign, were fuel shortages, rough terrain, which, given it's a desert, makes sense. Visibility from several varying sandstorms, you know, can't really expect that to go well. And then I have extreme, but that's probably I would assume exaggerating a little because in the Sahara Desert, the daytime temperatures can get scorching hot, and at night during the winters, it can get, you know, chilly compared to what some people are used to there, or even during the uh, summer, that's still a big difference in temperature, you know, used to it or not. Now, winner of all of this ended up being the Allies, which is a major step forward in reclaiming the land that Hitler has tried to claim as his own. And then the impact, as we've stated before, is it gives the opportunities for the Allies to invade Sicily to create a southern front in Europe instead of just the eastern front, which the USSR is facing at this time in the war. The Axis lost 620,000 troops to either injury or death, and the British lost 220,000. Now, speaking of Sicily, that whole battle only took about a month, in which the countries included were England, otherwise were referred to as the United Kingdom, and British India, the US, Canada, France, and support from Australia and people living in Sicily that were not necessarily supportive of Mussolini and his government that he created, or form of government, I should say. And then on the Axis, we have Italy and Germany, as you can expect. The winner ended up being the Allies, and the impact being, with there now being a front to the south, Germany had to keep some of their troops there near Sicily, just so the Allies wouldn't have as easy a chance to just go through the underbelly of Europe uh, than if those troops weren't there. The Germans ended up losing about 30,000 troops, Italians about 135, and the Allies 23,000. Now for D-Day, which happened on June 6, 1944, in Normandy, on the beaches of Normandy, featuring the United States, the British Commonwealth, featuring the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, and varying European countries. And then Germany being the lone Axis power that is fighting in Europe still. There are quite a few strategies that, or I guess two major strategies that were used to as part of D-Day, even though most people probably just think of it as, okay, Allies invaded this strip of land at the base of the English Channel to force a new front for the Germans to try and protect. Now, many people may know about the decoy setup, the operation name for it was Operation Bodyguard, because it tricked Germans, and or more specifically the German government, into thinking that there was going to be at least two major attacks on the beaches of France. Evidently, this one not coming. And then we also tricked Germany into thinking that we were preparing for an invasion of Norway to create, I guess, what would be considered a northern front. But that's, something else. We used inflatable tanks and landing craft. There were quite a few double agents used. Uh, Most famously, the person creating that sort of network being Juan Pujol Garcia, otherwise known as Scarbo. And then there were three other major operations in the wake of the D-Day attack, or D-Day invasion, uh, with them being Titanic, Taxable, and Glimmer. With that basically just being the British Royal Air Force dropping metal strips, codename being Windows, into France behind German lines to trick them into thinking that there was an attack behind them, which sort of worked. And then they also dropped fake parachutists to mimic an actual air attack to fight to throw off Germany the night preceding June 6th. That one being Operation Titanic, and that alone ended up throwing at least a fraction of these troops off. Uh, and you know, when they should be, in theory, should be facing the or paying attention to the beaches that are right in front of them. Then once the attack did happen, there were 9,000 Allied deaths in the first 24 hours, and then large gusts of wind left paratroopers, far off from where they were supposed to land, even if they jumped out of the plane at the correct time. And then there were a few marshlands in the area, so some of them were killed uh, just due to the wind. And of course, water, but wind. Winter evidently being the Allies, and that set up the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime in Europe, with about 19,000 or more than 19,000 people being either injured or killed in combat during this invasion. Now for the Battle of the Bulge in the Ardennes region of France, the final major German offensive on the Western Front. The Allies were primarily just the UK and the United States, and the Axis being Germany. The the weather being super harsh, with it being the winter, and just all these things, because it's I want to say it's sort of in a valley of sorts that makes it difficult to actually fight in. You know, just with just the geography of the area alone. Then Allies ended up winning. Uh, upwards of 100,000 Germans died, and or died or being injured, I should say, and 75,000 Americans. Now, for the final, or ultimately the last battle in the European theater, was the Battle of Berlin, evidently being in Berlin, and the countries involved were the USSR and Poland, and Axis being Germany, winner, uh, Russia or the USSR, and that ended up being the end of the European theater, but we were still fighting in the Pacific at this time and would continue doing so for another few months Japan, before the USSR declared war on Germany or Japan, I mean, and ending the war entirely. Overall, there were upwards of 181,000 troops killed and an additional upwards of 500,000 that were either sick or wounded from this battle alone.